In a tale filled with love, betrayal, and high-stakes drama, the story of Raul Montero and his wife Esmeralda unfolds with twists that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Picture this: Esmeralda, 8 months pregnant, is eagerly preparing for the arrival of their baby, while her husband Raul is secretly planning a future with his lover, Kelly. The opulent Montero mansion contrasts sharply with the storm brewing in their lives. As Raul's affair reaches a climax, a shadowy group knocks on the mansion's door, setting the stage for a dramatic confrontation. Esmeralda's joyous anticipation is shattered by a frantic hospital scene, where Raul's divided loyalties and a family empire on the brink of collapse converge in a night of heart-wrenching decisions. The chaos reaches a fever pitch when Raul makes a fateful choice, leaving his wife to face a life-threatening crisis alone. The tension mounts as Raul's escape to paradise is haunted by guilt and unforeseen complications, while Esmeralda fights to recover, revealing a shocking truth about her children. With forces closing in and lives hanging in the balance, this story will take you through a whirlwind of emotions, from hopeful beginnings to crushing despair, culminating in a dramatic and unexpected finale. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. On the fateful day when Esmeralda was to bring new life into the world, the man she loved and trusted cast her aside without a second thought, abandoning her in her most vulnerable moment to pursue his illicit affair with his mistress. Months later, a paralyzing fear gripped him as he observed 4 ominous, hooded figures, their silhouettes shrouded in dark mystery, knocking assertively on the majestic door of the Montero mansion, a symbol of his opulent yet hollow life. Within the gilded walls of this grand residence, Esmeralda, now 8 months pregnant and glowing with the radiance of impending motherhood, tenderly caressed her burgeoning belly. She gazed wistfully from the balcony into the lush, meticulously manicured garden below, her heart swelling with dreams of the future. Her face, framed by a cascade of luxuriant dark curls, exuded an ethereal kindness and serenity that starkly contrasted with the cold, oppressive atmosphere of the study where Raul Montero was embroiled in a tense and passionate phone conversation. "Kelly, my dearest love, patience is a virtue we must both embrace. Our time together is approaching swiftly," Raul whispered, his voice tinged with a tortured mixture of ambition and remorse. His eyes sparkled with an unsettling combination of desire and guilt, betraying his inner turmoil. But the conversation was abruptly cut short as the sound of Esmeralda's delicate footsteps approached, and he hurriedly ended the call, his heart pounding in his chest. As Esmeralda entered the study with a gentle, innocent smile that could melt the coldest of hearts, she inquired with genuine curiosity, "Raul, darling," who was on the phone. Her voice, soft and affectionate, carried an undertone of unspoken trust and vulnerability. "Just business, my love. Always business," Raul responded with a forced cheerfulness, planting a tender kiss on her forehead to mask his growing unease and the mounting guilt that gnawed at him. In a dimly lit office, nestled in the heart of the city, Don Alfonso Velázquez, Esmeralda's formidable father, sat with a grim expression, his face etched with deep lines of concern as he absorbed the unsettling news before him. "Keep a vigilant eye on Raul," he commanded, his voice heavy with authority and distrust. "I have no faith in his integrity," the man in the dark suit nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of the task at hand. As the evening shadows lengthened and dinner was served, Esmeralda's excitement bubbled over as she eagerly shared her elaborate plans for the baby's nursery, her voice brimming with joy and anticipation. Meanwhile, Raul's thoughts were a chaotic whirl of anxiety and guilt, fixated on the suitcase hidden in the trunk of his car and the plane ticket stashed in his wallet, symbols of his desperate attempt to escape the life he had meticulously constructed. In a nearby cafe, Kelly, a stunningly beautiful woman with piercing, feline eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets, anxiously checked her watch for the umpteenth time. Her mind raced with a blend of anticipation and impatience. Tomorrow, she whispered to herself, her voice laden with resolve. Tomorrow marks the dawn of our new life together. Unbeknownst to each of them, their lives were on the verge of intersecting in a dramatic and unforeseen convergence. The sprawling Velázquez empire, built upon a precarious foundation of hidden truths and dangerous alliances, was poised on the brink of unraveling. The intricate web of deceit and betrayal was about to implode, setting off a chain of events that would alter their destinies in ways none of them could foresee. As the darkness of night descended over the city, an enigmatic figure glided silently through the moonlit gardens of the Montero mansion, cloaked in secrecy and purpose. The stage was set, and the pieces began to shift in a high-stakes game where love, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of power were destined to collide. The tranquility of early morning was shattered by an unexpected and harrowing twist. Esmeralda awoke with a sharp, muffled cry, her hands gripping the luxurious silk sheets with desperation. "Raoul, the baby is coming," she gasped, her voice strained between agonizing contractions. Raoul, his face ashen and eyes wide with panic, rushed to his wife's side, his mind swirling with a storm of guilt and fear. Amid the chaos, his phone buzzed with a message from Kelly. "Where are you? The flight leaves in 3 hours." The hospital was a scene of frenetic urgency as the staff rushed to manage the escalating crisis. "She's losing a significant amount of blood," a nurse shouted, her voice echoing through the sterile, hectic hallway. Esmeralda, barely conscious, reached out for Raoul's hand, but he was absent, paralyzed by the crushing weight of his indecision. Removed from the heart-wrenching scene, Don Alfonso Velázquez received the dire news with a scowl of deep concern. "I'm on my way," he growled into his phone, his tone laced with determination. "And find that useless Raoul." Meanwhile, in the sterile, cold waiting room, Raoul was locked in an agonizing internal struggle, his gaze fixed on his phone. The dilemma was stark and brutal. Kelly or Esmeralda? The future he yearned for or the duty he had abandoned? With shaking hands and a heart weighed down by crushing regret, he made a fateful decision that would irrevocably alter the course of their lives. "I'm so sorry, Esmeralda," he whispered into the empty air, his voice barely audible, as he fled from the hospital, his footsteps echoing with a sense of betrayal. In the operating room, the team of doctors fought valiantly to preserve both mother and child. "She's going into shock," warned the lead surgeon urgently. "We need more blood." Don Alfonso stormed into the hospital like an avenging storm, his presence commanding and intense. "Where is my daughter?" he demanded fiercely, his eyes scanning the chaotic scene, but finding no trace of Raoul. His fury intensified as he instructed his men, "Find him. He must be here somewhere." Outside, as the city awoke to its ordinary routine, completely unaware of the unfolding tragedy, a taxi sped through the streets toward the airport. Inside, Raoul's dreams of a new life were packed into his suitcase, racing against time. In the hospital room, Esmeralda was engaged in a desperate fight for her life and that of her unborn child, blissfully ignorant of the profound betrayal that had transpired. Her heart monitor beeped erratically, a haunting prelude to the stormy days that lay ahead. The roar of the plane's engines became a relentless crescendo, drowning out Raoul's tortured conscience. Beside him, Kelly's triumphant smile gleamed with satisfaction, her fingers entwined with his in a victory that seemed to seal their fate. "Finally alone, my love," she whispered seductively as the Caribbean coast emerged on the horizon, a symbol of new beginnings that contrasted sharply with the wreckage left behind. Meanwhile, within the confines of the hospital, a chaotic symphony of beeps and urgent voices filled the sterile air, painting a picture of a dire struggle. Esmeralda lay in the ICU, her complexion as pale and lifeless as freshly fallen snow. The doctors and nurses moved with frantic precision, their foreheads slick with sweat as they battled to stabilize her condition. Each second was a precious, precarious thread in a complex tapestry of life and death. Don Alfonso Velázquez, his face etched with a storm of rage and anxiety, paced the waiting room with the relentless energy of a caged lion. "I swear you'll pay for this, Raúl," he growled through gritted teeth, his fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned a ghostly white. The room seemed to shrink under the weight of his fury, his every step a testament to his agony and determination. At that pivotal moment, Maria, Esmeralda's devoted best friend, burst into the room, her eyes red and swollen from the relentless assault of tears. Her heartache was palpable as she searched Don Alfonso's stern face for any hint of reassurance. "How are Esmeralda and the baby?" she asked, her voice quavering with desperation and fear. The room was heavy with the gravity of the situation, each passing moment stretching the thin veil between hope and despair. From the dim shadows of the hallway, a man in a dark suit observed the unfolding drama with a calculated detachment. With measured movements, he retrieved his phone and composed a cryptic message: "The dove is in the nest. The hawk has flown." His words, shrouded in enigmatic foreboding, hinted at deeper, unseen currents beneath the surface of the unfolding tragedy. In her unconscious state, Esmeralda was adrift in a haunting world of fragmented visions. Her mind wandered through a tumultuous landscape where joyful memories of her childhood intermingled with unsettling premonitions. She saw fleeting images of Raúl walking away, the plaintive cries of babies echoing in the void, and a menacing shadow looming ominously over everything she held dear. The dreamscape was a vivid tapestry of fear and longing, each thread weaving a narrative of loss and uncertainty. Suddenly, the tension in the ICU was shattered by a single, hopeful cry. "We have a pulse," a nurse announced with a mixture of relief and urgency. Esmeralda's life hung precariously by a thread, but she grasped onto it with every ounce of her fading strength, her will to survive igniting a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. The room, though still fraught with tension, was momentarily brightened by the fragile promise of life, a testament to the indomitable spirit that refused to be extinguished. In the sun-kissed paradise of the Caribbean, Raúl and Kelly reveled in their newfound freedom, clinking glasses of champagne in celebration. The effervescence of their drinks seemed to echo the exhilaration of their escape. Yet beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect moment, a flicker of doubt crossed Raúl's face, a shadow of regret that briefly interrupted his satisfaction. It was as if the weight of his actions had momentarily become too heavy to bear. Despite the tropical night enveloping them in its deceptive tranquility, an undercurrent of unease tugged at Raúl's conscience, hinting at the consequences of his decisions. Back in the city, darkness had settled, bringing a deceptive calm that belied the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. Powerful, unseen forces began to stir in the shadows, orchestrating a web of intrigue that would soon ensnare everyone in its intricate trap. The silence of the early morning at the hospital was shattered by the cries of newborns, their voices piercing the stillness. Twins announced the doctor with a weary but genuine smile. A boy and a girl. Yet the fleeting joy of this announcement was tempered by the stark reality Esmeralda remained deep in a coma, her life hanging in a delicate balance. Don Alfonso Velázquez, his face etched with deep lines of worry and exhaustion, stood vigil by the nursery glass, his eyes fixed on his newborn grandchildren. His phone vibrated, cutting through the quiet intensity of the moment. "We found them," came the voice on the other end, laden with significant gravity. There on a private beach in the Caribbean, the revelation was a cold reminder of the unresolved betrayal and impending reckoning. Meanwhile, Maria, her eyes swollen and red from relentless tears and sleepless nights, had been searching through Esmeralda's purse in a desperate attempt to find some clue or solace. Amongst the cosmetics and scattered papers, she found something that struck her like a cold wave: an old photograph of Raúl in a passionate kiss with an unknown woman. "Oh, Esmeralda," she whispered, her voice quivering with sorrow and betrayal. "How long have you known?" On the serene beach where Raoul and Kelly had sought refuge, the tranquil surroundings did little to soothe Raoul's burgeoning unease. As he woke beside Kelly, her sleeping form was juxtaposed with the haunting image of Esmeralda that lingered in his troubled dreams. The idyllic paradise felt increasingly incongruous with the turmoil within him. Suddenly, Kelly stirred, her face pale and her demeanor fraught with anxiety. "Raoul," she said, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve, "I have to tell you something. I'm pregnant." The impact of Kelly's confession was akin to a bombshell detonating within Raoul's already fractured conscience. The revelation left him grappling with a storm of emotions, the gravity of his choices crashing over him like relentless waves. As he struggled to process the enormity of the situation, the idyllic surroundings offered no refuge from the internal chaos that now threatened to unravel everything he had sought to escape. Raoul's sense of foreboding deepened as he caught sight of a solitary figure watching them from a distance, a camera in hand, capturing their every moment. The unseen observer's presence was a chilling reminder that their actions were not as private as they had believed. The Caribbean's vibrant allure seemed to wane as Raoul's unease grew like the setting sun casting long shadows over their stolen paradise. Back at the hospital, the atmosphere was thick with tension and unspoken fears. Doctors clustered around Esmeralda's bedside, their faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. Her condition is stable, but the coma persists. One of the doctors reported to Don Alfonso, his tone laden with professional concern. "The next few days will be critical," Don Alfonso nodded solemnly, the weight of his daughter's plight pressing heavily on his shoulders. His expression was one of steely resolve as he withdrew to make a call. "I want them warned," he instructed with chilling precision. "Let them feel the fear in their bones." His voice, cold and resolute, carried a promise of retribution that would soon unfold. As the night draped its dark cloak over the city once more, a storm began to brew on the Caribbean horizon, a foreboding sign of the turmoil and upheaval that lay ahead. In the sterile confines of the hospital room, the rhythmic beep of Esmeralda's monitors provided a steady, albeit fragile, cadence to a life that clung desperately to hope. With the dawn came a glimmer of possibility. Esmeralda's eyes fluttered open, slowly adjusting to the dim light of the hospital room. Her initial confusion gave way to a wave of panic as the reality of her situation hit her. "My baby," she whispered hoarsely, her voice cracking with distress. Maria, who had vigilantly stayed by her side throughout the night, leaned closer, her face a mix of compassion and sorrow. "There are two, Esmeralda. You had twins," she said gently, attempting to offer solace. But the joy in Maria's eyes quickly dimmed as she added, "Esmeralda. Raoul." The stark reality of her husband's betrayal washed over Esmeralda like a cold, unyielding wave. Tears welled up and began to stream down her cheeks as she confronted the painful truth. "I knew it," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper, "but I didn't want to believe it." Each tear was a testament to the heartbreak and disbelief that gripped her. At that moment, Don Alfonso entered the room, his normally impassive face revealing a rare blend of relief and simmering fury. He approached his daughter with a tenderness that belied the storm raging within him. "My child," he said, carefully enveloping Esmeralda in a protective embrace. Then, with a voice hardened by determination, he added, "I've taken measures. That scoundrel will pay for what he did." His promise was a dark harbinger of the retribution that was yet to unfold, a vow to make Raoul's betrayal reverberate with consequences as severe as the storm brewing over the Caribbean. In the lush, sun-drenched paradise of the Caribbean, Raoul awoke with a start, his heart racing as if it had just escaped a nightmare. An enigmatic envelope had been slipped silently under the door of his hotel room. With trembling fingers, he tore it open, revealing a collection of photos, each image depicting intimate moments between himself and Kelly. The accompanying note, scrawled in an ominous hand, Read enjoy your last moments of peace. The weight of the words crashed down on him, turning the tropical retreat he had once seen as an escape into a gilded cage of fear and paranoia. Back in the stark, sterile environment of the hospital, Maria summoned her remaining courage to confront Esmeralda with the damning evidence of Raul's betrayal. Each photograph and message was a fresh wound, each revelation a painful dagger piercing through Esmeralda's already shattered heart. Yet, rather than succumbing to despair, Esmeralda's eyes burned with a newfound fire. No more tears, she declared with steely resolve, sitting upright despite the pain. My children need me to be strong. Her words were a clarion call to her spirit, igniting a determination to overcome the adversity that had been thrust upon her. Don Alfonso watched his daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. He was acutely aware that the storm looming on the horizon would be fierce and unrelenting. However, he also recognized the strength in Esmeralda, a resilience forged in the crucible of betrayal and pain. What remained unknown to all was that fate had more twists in store, some of which would forever alter the course of their lives. The news of the threatening messages spread rapidly through the Caribbean enclave, transforming Raul and Kelly's brief period of paradise into a realm of fear and urgency. With palpable anxiety, they hastily packed their belongings, every action laden with trepidation. We need to return to Mexico immediately, Raul urged, his face a canvas of pale, clammy sweat and frantic worry. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Esmeralda's path to recovery began, marked by a slow but steady ascent from the depths of her suffering. Lucia, a kind-eyed nurse with a soothing presence, approached her with a gentle, comforting smile. "You're incredibly strong, Senora Montero," she said softly. "Your children need you." Lucia's words resonated deeply with Esmeralda, catalyzing her determination to navigate through the pain and betrayal with renewed resolve. As the plane carrying Raul and Kelly touched down in Mexico, it was met not by the warm embrace of familiarity, but by a fresh wave of fear and uncertainty. Raul's mind churned with questions and apprehensions about the consequences of their actions. What had they unwittingly set into motion? In the hospital, Don Alfonso was already taking decisive action. He met with a private investigator, his face a mask of grim resolve. "Uncover who's behind these threats," he ordered, his voice edged with an undercurrent of menace. "And ensure the safety of my daughter and grandchildren." The investigation began, shrouded in secrecy and intrigue, as the Velázquez Empire grappled with its internal conflicts and looming external dangers. The storm clouds of betrayal and revenge cast their shadows over all their lives, promising a dramatic confrontation that would unveil the true nature of each character. In a dimly lit corner of the hospital, Don Alfonso slumped into a weary state of consciousness, his head bowed in despair. The beeping of monitors and the rustling of medical staff were distant sounds compared to the turmoil in his mind. With a raspy but determined voice, he summoned his assistant. "Execute Plan Omega," he commanded with a steely resolve. "It's time to end this nightmare." The gravity of his words echoed ominously in the sterile room. Meanwhile, 4 shadowy mercenaries, who had been covertly surveilling the hospital, received a new set of cryptic instructions on their phones. The message was brief but charged with urgency. Their expressions shifted from casual detachment to steely determination. One of them, his voice low and resolute, said, "So this is the real game. Let's see it through." Elsewhere in the hospital, Maria was in a state of frantic excitement. Her recent research had uncovered a revelation so staggering that it nearly left her breathless. Sprinting through the labyrinthine hallways, she sought out Esmeralda with a single-minded urgency. "The twins," Maria shouted, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. "There's something extraordinary about them." Back in Esmeralda's room, Lucia, the compassionate nurse who had been quietly nurturing her recovery, revealed a truth that would upend Esmeralda's entire world. As she disclosed her secret, Esmeralda's face transitioned from shock to disbelief. "It can't be true," she whispered hoarsely, grappling with the magnitude of the revelation. "Does this mean my whole life has been a lie?" Lucia's grave nod was the only answer needed. "It's true, Esmeralda. And there's much more to uncover, something monumental that could reshape our destinies and perhaps the future of many." As the hours of the night wore on, the fragmented pieces of a long-hidden conspiracy began to coalesce. The truth, shrouded in secrecy and deceit, was on the brink of emerging, with the fate of everyone involved hanging precariously in the balance. The dawning of a new day found Esmeralda in a state of feverish agitation. Lucia's revelations had rocked her to her core, but her resolve had never been stronger. "I'm going to liquidate everything," she declared to Maria, who stared at her in stunned disbelief. "The mansion, the jewels, the stocks, everything. My children's future is worth every sacrifice." Meanwhile, Raoul, overwhelmed by his guilt and mounting desperation, was crafting a desperate and ill-fated plan. "If I can't have them," he muttered to himself, his voice choked with anguish, "then at least I'll ensure their safety." With shaking hands, he began drafting a ransom note addressed to himself, a futile attempt to salvage what little he could from the wreckage of his life. In the intensive care unit, Don Alfonso was visited by an unexpected and unwelcome intruder. 4 men, their suits sharp and their badges discreetly concealed, entered the room with a purpose. "Don Alfonso Velázquez." One of the men said in a low, authoritative tone, "We're from Interpol. We've been tracking your activities for years. It's time we had a serious discussion." The air in the room thickened with tension as the walls of Don Alfonso's empire began to close in around him. Lucia found herself at a crucial juncture, caught between her allegiance to the agency that had meticulously trained her and the deep emotional bonds she had forged with Esmeralda and the twins. In a quiet, hidden nook of the hospital, she took a deep breath and made a call that would alter the trajectory of her life. "Boss." She murmured into the receiver, her voice barely a whisper. "The situation has escalated. The twins are more significant than we initially thought. We need to reassess our priorities immediately." At the same time, in a room reserved for her recovery, Kelly received unsettling news from a somber doctor, M.S. Kelly. He began, his tone serious and urgent. "Her condition is far more complicated than anticipated. We face critical decisions in the coming hours that will determine the future of both her and the babies." In a relentless quest for answers, Maria unearthed an information that left her in a state of awe and trepidation. The genetic test results for the twins revealed something astonishing, an anomaly that had the potential to revolutionize modern medicine. The discovery was so groundbreaking that it could shift the very foundations of scientific understanding. As the early morning light began to seep through the hospital windows, the atmosphere in the hallways grew heavy with anticipation. There was an unmistakable sense that a pivotal moment was drawing near. Esmeralda, cradling her newborns, gazed out at the city gradually stirring to life. With a fierce resolve, she whispered to her children, her voice imbued with both love and determination, "No matter what comes our way, I will protect you with every ounce of my being, even if it means standing against the entire world." The first light of dawn cast a warm glow over the hospital, highlighting the exhaustion etched on Don Alfonso's face. The recent visit from the Interpol agents had thrust him into a heightened state of alert. With a sense of urgency that matched the gravity of the situation, he fumbled with his phone, dialing a number that could set into motion a series of defensive measures. "Emilio," he urged, his voice tight with anxiety, "initiate the emergency protocol immediately. We must safeguard our legacy at all costs. There is no room for error." As the sun ascended, casting its light over the hospital and beyond, the intertwined destinies of all involved began to converge. Each character, driven by their motivations and fears, faced a pivotal moment that would redefine their futures and reshape the fabric of their lives. The storm of betrayal, ambition, and Hidden Truths was about to reach its crescendo, with every action reverberating through the complex web of their intertwined fates. Meanwhile, in the bustling hospital cafe, Maria anxiously met with the private detective she had discreetly hired. The man, clearly on edge, darted nervous glances around the room, as if fearing eavesdroppers. His voice, hushed and trembling, carried the weight of unsettling revelations. "What I've uncovered about Raoul is deeply troubling," he confided, sliding a manila envelope across the table with a shaky hand. "But there's something even more significant at play. Someone with immense power is orchestrating events behind the scenes." Maria's fingers hovered over the envelope, but her curiosity was interrupted by a sudden commotion. A piercing noise reverberated through the hospital corridors, drawing everyone's attention. Kelly, pale and breathless, collapsed in front of her room, sending shockwaves through the hospital staff. Doctors rushed to her side, their faces etched with concern and urgency. Raoul, paralyzed by a mix of guilt and horror, stood at a distance, unable to tear his gaze away from the unfolding crisis. At that critical moment, Lucia appeared beside Esmeralda, her demeanor resolute and intense. "Esmeralda," she said with unwavering conviction, "you need to understand something crucial about your children. Their condition is not a curse, it's a remarkable gift." Esmeralda's confusion was palpable as she tried to process Lucia's words. Before she could articulate her bewilderment, the hospital's intercom crackled to life with a chilling announcement. "Code Blue in room 305," the voice intoned. It was Don Alfonso's room. Instantly, chaos erupted throughout the hospital. Medical staff and security personnel scrambled through the corridors, their frantic movements a blur of activity. Amid this turmoil, a man clad in a dark suit silently maneuvered his way through the confusion. With practiced ease, he slipped into the nursery where the twins lay, unnoticed amidst the chaos surrounding Don Alfonso's medical emergency. The hospital, now a whirlwind of fear and urgency, became the stage for a convergence of hidden agendas and desperate actions. Each character, driven by their fears and desires, was thrust into a maelstrom where their true intentions and the extent of their involvement were about to be laid bare. As the minutes ticked by, the atmosphere thickened with tension, setting the stage for revelations that would forever alter their intertwined destinies. Seeing the chaos unfold, Maria's attempt to reach Esmeralda was abruptly halted by a firm hand on her shoulder. She turned to find an Interpol agent, his face etched with urgency and authority. "Mom," he said in a grave tone, "we need you to come with us. National security is at stake." As Maria was led away, her heart pounded with anxiety and confusion. Esmeralda remained in her hospital room, clutching her babies with a fierce resolve. "No one will separate us," she whispered to her children, her voice trembling yet resolute. Unbeknownst to her, the forces converging on the hospital were about to challenge her vow in ways she couldn't have foreseen. The atmosphere in the hospital grew more charged by the second. Raoul, his face etched with panic and guilt, burst into the nursery. His eyes darted around, landing on the cribs where the twins lay innocently. "I have to get them out of here," he murmured, his steps hesitant and filled with dread. Just as he reached for the cribs, Lucia emerged from the shadows with a swift and purposeful stride. Her presence, once comforting, now held a menacing edge. "Not another step," Lucia commanded, her voice firm. The transformation of the once kind nurse into a formidable guardian caught Raoul off guard. He hesitated, his hand hovering above the crib. "You don't understand," he pleaded, desperation lacing his voice. "They're in danger. We're all in danger." Raoul's pleas were met with an implacable gaze from Lucia. "The danger isn't as straightforward as you think," she replied, her tone conveying both resolve and sorrow. "And right now, the greatest threat is to those children." Elsewhere, amid the hospital's turmoil, Esmeralda faced a staggering revelation. Don Alfonso, now partially recovered from his heart crisis, had reluctantly disclosed the disturbing truth about his involvement in drug trafficking. The news was a bombshell that shattered Esmeralda's already fragile sense of reality. Stunned and conflicted, Esmeralda grappled with the weight of the new information. Her father's criminal connections had been hidden behind a facade of power and respect, but now the truth was out in the open. The realization that her father's empire was entangled in dangerous illegal activities added another layer of complexity to her situation. As the tension in the hospital reached a fever pitch, the multiple crises converged, each thread of deceit, danger, and betrayal weaving into a larger, more sinister tapestry. Esmeralda's struggle to protect her children was not just a fight for their safety, but a battle against a sprawling web of corruption and peril that threatened to engulf them all. In the dim light of Don Alfonso's hospital room, the weight of the world pressed heavily on Esmeralda's shoulders. The intense storm outside mirrored the turmoil within her heart as she faced her father's anguished plea. "Daughter," Don Alfonso's voice quivered, "you have to choose. Either expose my dealings and save your children, or remain silent and preserve the family legacy." Esmeralda's breath came in shallow gasps as she weighed her options. Her father's empire had been built on secrets and lies, but now the stakes were far higher. Her children's safety and her family's legacy hung in the balance. At that critical moment, Maria burst into the room, flanked by the Interpol agents. The agents, stoic and unyielding, observed the unfolding drama with a calculated detachment. Maria, her eyes filled with both urgency and fear, shouted, "Esmeralda, there's a bigger conspiracy at play. Your children are the key to everything." Esmeralda's heart raced as the reality of Maria's words sank in. The storm outside grew fiercer, causing the windows to rattle and the lights to flicker. The electricity plunged the hallways into brief darkness before the emergency generators roared to life, restoring a flickering semblance of normalcy. In the hallway, Kelly, pale and weak, was being rushed to intensive care. Her condition was critical, and her whispered plea for the safety of her baby added to the mounting tension. "The baby," she murmured to the passing doctors. "They have to save him." Lucia, still stationed by the nursery, received a cryptic message on her phone that caused her eyes to widen in surprise. "Change of plan," she read aloud, her voice trembling with the implications of the message. The sudden shift in her mission added another layer of uncertainty to the already volatile situation. As Esmeralda stood torn between her father's legacy and her children's future, she glanced at Maria, who stood beside the Interpol agents with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Her gaze then shifted to the nursery, where her children slept peacefully, unaware of the chaos surrounding them. Esmeralda's tears fell silently as she contemplated her decision. The storm outside battered the city, its hurricane-force winds a physical manifestation of the emotional tempest inside her. The choice she was about to make would not only determine her family's fate, but could potentially alter the course of history itself. Finally, with a deep breath, Esmeralda opened her mouth to make her decision. Her voice, though steady, was filled with the gravity of the moment. "I will expose the truth," she declared, her resolve clear despite the tears streaming down her face. "My children deserve a future free from the shadows of our past." The storm outside roared with renewed fury as Esmeralda's words echoed through the room, setting in motion a chain of events that would unravel the tangled web of deceit and danger that had ensnared them all. In the heart of the storm, the tension in the hospital reached a fever pitch. Esmeralda's declaration had set off a chain reaction that threatened to unravel the lives of everyone involved. With determination in her eyes, she headed towards the nursery, resolved to confront whatever awaited her. As she navigated the chaotic hallways, the storm outside seemed to echo the turmoil within the hospital. The hurricane's winds howled through the broken windows, sending eerie gusts through the corridors. Esmeralda's resolve was tested with every step, but the thought of her children kept her moving forward. Raoul, meanwhile, had managed to evade Lucia's watchful gaze. He fled down the emergency exit, clutching his bulging backpack tightly. Maria, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, pursued him relentlessly. When she finally tackled him to the ground, the contents of the backpack scattered across the floor. Among the items, Maria found documents and photographs that revealed a web of deception far greater than she had anticipated. Her eyes widened as she processed the evidence. This can't be true," she murmured in disbelief. In the intensive care unit, Kelly's struggle to give birth intensified. Lucia, torn between her dual roles as a caregiver and a covert operative, worked tirelessly to ensure both mother and child's survival. "Hang on, Kelly," she whispered, her hands moving with practiced precision. The room was filled with the sounds of medical equipment and Kelly's labored breaths as Lucia fought to keep the situation under control. Don Alfonso, weakened but resolute, made a crucial call. "Activate Plan Omega," he said in a voice laced with regret and resignation. The urgency in his tone left no room for doubt. "May God forgive us." His words set into motion a final, desperate strategy designed to protect what remained of his empire. As the Interpol agents received a distress signal, their eyes filled with concern. "Mrs. Montero," one of them said urgently, "we need to get you out of here right now. You and your children." They moved swiftly to escort Esmeralda, but she resisted. "I won't leave without my children, and I won't leave without knowing the whole truth," she declared firmly. "If this is the end, then let it be the end of all secrets." Esmeralda made her way to the nursery, where the storm outside cast a dark shadow over the peaceful faces of her sleeping children. The sound of thunder roared through the building as she approached, determined to confront whatever awaited her. The hospital was a maelstrom of activity. The hurricane's fury outside mirrored the inner chaos, and the lives of those within the hospital hung precariously in the balance. Each decision, each revelation, had the potential to reshape their fates. In the final moments of this dramatic saga, the true cost of the long-held secrets and the actions taken in desperation would be revealed, marking the end of a story fraught with betrayal, redemption, and the unrelenting quest for truth. The room held its collective breath as the confrontation with Agent Ramirez unfolded. Esmeralda, her resolve steely, held her twins protectively as Antonio stood by her side, his presence a pillar of strength. The atmosphere was thick with tension, each person acutely aware that their next actions could define their futures. Special Agent Ramirez, her gaze sharp and assessing, listened to the exchanges with a mixture of professionalism and curiosity. "An hour," she repeated, her voice carrying the weight of the decision. "We'll need to see what evidence you have." Maria stepped forward, clutching the USB drive like a lifeline. She connected it to a nearby laptop, and the screen flickered to life with a cascade of documents and images. "This," Maria began, "contains evidence of not just the illegal activities, but also of the larger conspiracy we've been entangled in. It shows connections to powerful figures and hidden agendas that have put us all at risk." Agent Ramirez's eyes narrowed as she reviewed the files. Her team began to scrutinize the information, their faces a mix of concentration and disbelief. The evidence revealed intricate networks of deception, corruption, and threats that extended far beyond the hospital's walls. The files painted a picture of a vast operation that had exploited the Velázquez family for its ends. Don Alfonso, leaning heavily on his cane, looked on with a mixture of relief and regret. "If this clears our name, then let's do it. We have to make this right." As the team reviewed the evidence, the storm outside intensified, the howling winds and torrential rain serving as a dramatic backdrop to the unfolding drama. Inside, the hospital's emergency lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, adding to the surreal atmosphere. Agent Ramirez, having reviewed a significant portion of the evidence, looked at Esmeralda with a newfound understanding. "I need to confer with my superiors," she said, "but it seems there might be more to this story than initially reported." Esmeralda nodded, her grip on her children tightening. "Please, do what you need to. I just want to protect my family and uncover the truth." Maria, standing beside her, shared a look of determination with Antonio. "We have to stay strong. This is our chance to set things right." As the agents left to consult with their higher-ups, the room fell into a tense silence. Esmeralda, Antonio, and Maria huddled together, their minds racing with the implications of the unfolding events. The storm outside continued to rage, a fitting metaphor for the tumultuous journey they had embarked upon. With the hour ticking away, they knew that their next steps would be crucial. Whether they would emerge from this trial with their reputations restored and their futures secured remained uncertain. But for the first time in a long while, they felt a glimmer of hope that the truth would prevail and that justice would be served. As the confessions and revelations unfolded, the atmosphere in the room became charged with a mix of relief and tension. Each person's story is interwoven with the others, painting a complex portrait of the events that led them to this critical juncture. Raoul took a deep breath, his eyes meeting those of the gathered agents. "I was seduced by the promise of wealth and power, but as I got deeper into this, I realized I was in over my head. I never meant for any of this to happen, but I was too entangled to back out. I'm ready to make amends and face the consequences." Maria, with a determined look, continued to guide Agent Ramirez through the evidence. The research into the twins and Kelly's baby could lead to breakthroughs in medicine. The genetic variation they possess could potentially offer cures for several rare conditions. It's why so many have tried to control or exploit them. Agent Ramirez studied the evidence intently, her face reflecting a mix of intrigue and concern. "What you're presenting here is significant. If this information is accurate, it has far-reaching implications beyond national security." Antonio, looking both relieved and weary, added his piece. "I had to fake my death to protect my family and the research. I didn't foresee that it would escalate to this level. I hope you understand now why I took such drastic measures." Don Alfonso, frail but resolute, admitted his involvement with a sense of finality. "I regret the methods I employed, but my intention was always to shield my family and contribute to something greater. I hope this doesn't overshadow the good that was intended." Lucia, her cover finally blown, offered her perspective. "I was assigned to monitor the situation due to its potential threat to national security. What I've seen here has shifted my understanding. This isn't just about protecting research, it's about safeguarding lives and pursuing a greater good." As the confessions settled, a palpable sense of hope and dread mixed in the room. Agent Ramirez turned to her team, considering the weight of the information before her. "We need to verify these claims and ensure that all relevant data is authentic. This evidence and these testimonies will be thoroughly investigated." Kelly, still holding her baby, looked at the group with gratitude. "If this helps us clear the air and ensures a better future for our children, then I'm ready to face whatever comes next." Esmeralda, feeling the collective weight of the moment, took a deep breath and addressed Agent Ramirez. "Thank you for giving us this chance. We've been through so much, and all we want now is to protect our children and find some semblance of normalcy." The storm outside had diminished to a drizzle, as if mirroring the gradual resolution inside the hospital. The room's mood shifted from one of chaotic confrontation to a fragile hope for a resolution. As the agents began to conduct their investigation, the group knew that their immediate fate was uncertain. However, for the first time in a long while, they faced the future with a united front, their past actions laid bare, and their commitment to doing right standing as their guiding principle. In the quiet aftermath, Esmeralda looked around at the people who had become unexpected allies. "Whatever happens next, we've taken the first step towards facing the truth and making things right." The room fell into a reflective silence as the group awaited the outcome of the investigation, their lives now intertwined in a dramatic narrative of secrecy, redemption, and the search for justice. Esmeralda's eyes widened with a mix of relief and concern. The attorney's words offered a glimmer of hope, but left many questions unanswered. "What about our children?" she asked, her voice trembling with the weight of her fears. The attorney looked directly at her, his expression softening. "The children will be returned to your custody under strict conditions. You will need to cooperate with ongoing monitoring to ensure their safety and well-being. The federal oversight will focus on protecting them from exploitation and ensuring that their unique genetic traits are not misused." Kelly, still holding her baby, let out a sigh of relief. "And what about the legal consequences for those involved in the illegal activities?" Agent Ramirez stepped forward. "There will be legal actions taken against those who acted outside the law, but the focus will be on ensuring that the research is handled properly moving forward. The priority is to rectify past mistakes and ensure that the future is handled ethically." Esmeralda, feeling a mix of exhaustion and cautious optimism, nodded. "Thank you for handling this with understanding. We will do everything necessary to ensure that our children are protected and that the research is conducted ethically." The Attorney General nodded in agreement. "We appreciate your cooperation. We must move forward with transparency and integrity. We will provide a detailed plan for the ongoing oversight and ensure that all involved parties are held accountable." With the immediate crisis averted, the group began to breathe a little easier. The storm outside had finally passed, and the city was beginning to recover. The hospital, once a battleground of secrets and tension, now seemed to offer a glimmer of hope for a new beginning. As the group prepared to leave the hospital, Esmeralda gathered her family and looked around at the people who had stood by her side through the turmoil. "We've been through so much," she said, her voice steady with resolve. "But we've come out of this stronger and more united. We will face the future together, and we will make sure that our children grow up in a world where they are valued and safe." Kelly nodded, her eyes reflecting gratitude. "Here's to new beginnings and a future where we live without fear." Raul, despite the weight of his past actions, looked at the group with a sense of redemption. "I'll do everything I can to make things right. I hope this can be a step towards healing." Lucia, now free from her undercover role, offered a reassuring smile. "It's been a long journey, but it's time to focus on what matters most: family, truth, and a better future." As the group left the hospital, they knew that the road ahead would still be challenging, but they were ready to face it together. With the promise of transparency and ethical oversight, they embarked on a new chapter of their lives, determined to protect their children and work towards a future where truth and integrity prevailed. Esmeralda smiled softly, her heart swelling with a mix of love and relief. "We've been through so much," she said, taking Antonio's hand, "but we've come out stronger. We have a chance to build a new life together." Kelly, now in a secure recovery room with her baby, found solace in the steady support of Maria and Lucia. The baby, safe in her arms, seemed to symbolize a new beginning, and Kelly felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in months. "Thank you for everything," she told Maria and Lucia, her voice full of gratitude. "Without your help, we wouldn't be here." Lucia nodded, her professional demeanor softened by personal warmth. "It was my honor to assist. I'm just glad we could bring some resolution to all of this." As the days passed, the ethical committee was formed, and Esmeralda was actively involved in ensuring that the research was conducted with the utmost respect for the families and their privacy. The committee worked diligently to balance scientific advancement with ethical considerations, ensuring that no further harm would come to those involved. Don Alfonso, facing legal consequences, began to come to terms with the consequences of his actions. He worked closely with his legal team to make amends and cooperate fully with the authorities. His resignation was a somber reminder of the price of hidden truths, but it also marked the beginning of his path toward redemption. Raul, despite his previous actions, found a new purpose. He took responsibility for his mistakes and sought ways to contribute positively, hoping to make a difference in the future. His involvement in the resolution of the situation was a step towards his redemption. The hospital staff, having witnessed the dramatic turn of events, were now focused on providing the best care for Esmeralda, Kelly, and their children. The atmosphere in the hospital slowly transformed from one of tension and secrecy to one of hope and healing. As Esmeralda, Antonio, Kelly, and their families settled into their new reality, they faced the future with a renewed sense of purpose and unity. They had been tested by secrets, betrayal, and crisis, but they emerged with a deeper understanding of the value of truth and the strength of family. In the quiet moments of reflection, Esmeralda often found herself gazing out the window of her suite, watching as the city continued its rhythm of life beyond the hospital walls. The storm that had once raged was now a distant memory, and in its place was the promise of a new beginning. Together they faced the challenges ahead, knowing that while their journey was far from over, they had found hope and strength in each other. The chapter of secrets had closed, but a new story was just beginning, one of healing, truth, and the unwavering bond of family. Esmeralda gazed around at the room filled with those who had become an unexpected family through the trials they had endured. The new reality they faced was still being shaped, but the unity and strength they had found in each other offered a beacon of hope. "We'll adapt," she said softly, her voice carrying a blend of resolve and optimism. "We've already faced so much, and now we have the chance to build something positive from it." Kelly, still adjusting to her new role as a mother and recovering from her ordeal, found solace in Maria's regular visits. Their newfound friendship grew as they shared stories and supported one another. "I can't believe how much has changed," Kelly reflected one day, holding her baby close. "It's like a new chapter for all of us." Maria smiled warmly, her eyes filled with empathy. "It is. And we get to write it together. The past might have been painful, but we have the power to shape our future." Don Alfonso and Raul, navigating their legal situations, faced their consequences with a sense of acceptance. The process was arduous, but both men were committed to making amends and cooperating fully. The legal proceedings were a reminder of the high price of their actions, but also a step toward redemption. Lucia, having stepped away from her undercover role, struggled with her identity but found comfort in her new role as a friend. During their coffee conversation, Esmeralda's reassurance was a lifeline for Lucia. "You've done so much for us," Esmeralda said sincerely. "Now it's time to focus on what you want for yourself." Lucia nodded, feeling a mix of relief and uncertainty. "I want to find my place, and I want to be here for all of you. Maybe that's where I start." The daily routines became a balance of medical visits, family time, and adjusting to a life that, while different, was filled with hope. The ethical committee, now established, worked diligently to ensure that the research was conducted with the highest standards of transparency and respect. One afternoon, as everyone gathered in Esmeralda's suite for Antonio's toast, the atmosphere was one of celebration and reflection. Antonio raised his glass, his voice filled with emotion. "To the truth," he said, his eyes meeting Esmeralda's, "and to the future we can build together." The clinking of glasses was more than a ceremonial gesture, it was a symbol of their shared commitment to a new beginning. Each person in the room felt the weight of their past lifting, replaced by the promise of a brighter future. As the days turned into weeks, the group continued to navigate their new lives, strengthened by the bonds they had formed and the lessons they had learned. They faced their future with courage, knowing that while challenges lay ahead, they had the resilience and support to overcome them. Together, they embraced the path forward, finding solace in their unity and the hope that guided them through the uncertainties of their new beginning. And as they looked ahead, they did so with the understanding that their strength lay in their ability to face the future together, no matter what it might bring. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found the information valuable and engaging. So far, we've covered a range of topics and insights that are designed to enrich your knowledge and skills. We'd love to hear from you. Please share one thing you've learned today and how you plan to apply it in your life. Leave your comment below this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comments, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Your support helps us bring you more great videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.